Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This
Alaikum
is
assalam
the
warahmatullah.
seventh day of Ramadan, Brother Usman. I don't know if you can believe it or not.
Yeah,
Alhamdulillah.
yeah.
We're here live at RamadanPrep.com. If you are new to our community, go ahead and if you're watching this stream elsewhere, you can go to RamadanPrep.com so you can sign up. RamadanPrep.com. This way you can get all of the different recordings that have happened so far. MashaAllah, we had begun the program with Sheikh Yasser Qadi on March 10th with talking about getting ready for Ramadan as in general. Then we had the topic of Quran. We had the topic of the heart yesterday with Sister Hala Banani. And we've got the topic of maybe the mind today with Brother Usman Mughni. Let's see if we cover both heart and mind
Mm.
today as we conclude with the last day of Ramadan prep. And again, as always, I remind you guys, our main partner is a continuous charity that's allowed us to be here, and you're watching on their stream. So that's acceducate.org. We give interest-free loans to Muslim students all across America so they can go to college, avoiding riba and the mental stress that comes with that. And that's related to our topic today. So today, we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. One of the things I would love to ask you, Brother Usman, after I introduce you, is about how this Ramadan is different than previous Ramadans. But before I do that, Usman Mughni today with us. Jazakumullah khairan. Thanks for coming, Usman. I really appreciate it. Your valuable time. So, licensed marriage and family therapist. He holds a master's of science degree from Northern Illinois University and a bunch of other credentials that we don't have to go into right now. But what's most important is he's helping people navigate through the challenges of life, of relationships, of making themselves better so they can, make their relationships better, both with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with other people. He's got a service called Peaceful You Counseling. Look it up right now. Inshallah, Sister Lisha, we can put that in the link, Peaceful You Counseling. And with that, Brother Usman, how are you today?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. I'm doing well. Ramadan Mubarak. How are you?
Ramadan Mubarak. Can you believe it? It's the seventh day of Ramadan.
It's the
That's
seventh day.
25% gone. Or should I
Right,
look
right.
at
Yeah, yeah,
75% still here?
yeah. Subhanallah. Every year we say like it just moves fast. It begins and we're already halfway through, and then it's over. And at our masjid they have like the halftime show. It just
Yeah.
happens so quickly. So, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. But
Wow, subhanAllah.
but yeah, yeah. You were asking subhanallah about this
I,
Ramadan
I
being
did. I
different.
did ask you a
Yeah,
question. Just to
yeah.
restate that question, Ramadan feel different than previous Ramadans?
No, no, absolutely. Emotionally, it's a very different feeling. It's a very challenging Ramadan in many senses, and I think it's going to be, already is, a powerful Ramadan in a way that it hasn't been in previous years, right? So, typically when we think of Ramadan, we think of festivities, we think of like just joyous occasions, and like even my wife, mashallah tabarakallah, she likes to decorate the place and just have all these lights and so on. And this year it didn't feel right to have that festive mode. And so the decorations that we've put up are symbolic or in reference to what's going on with our dear brothers and sisters in Gaza, because we
Mm,
don't want we don't want to take away from the joy of Ramadan, but we don't want to take away from the reality of what's going on. And it's
right.
the navigating, and this is kind of what I wanted to focus on a lot in our talk, because I'm seeing so many people, myself included, struggling with this. How do we just navigate through this multitude of feelings, right? I'm
Mm,
happy Ramadan is here. I am bewildered at the fact that we are watching a genocide live on social media,
well,
and the reality is, may Allah ease their plight.
I mean,
Most of us, and Abdullah, I'm your age, right? So I'm going to call you old as well. Like, so we've seen Shishan, we've seen Bosnia, we've seen some of
officially.
the other
Yeah.
atrocities, but this is probably, at least for me, the most death that I've seen in my life, and I
Mm,
would say that most people would agree with that, you know. And so,
absolutely.
how do we, yeah, how do we keep hope? How do we, stay focused while knowing that this is all going on? Yeah, and so
Subhanallah.
so 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 that's what's different. But also, what's different is, I know for me, my heart was yearning for this Ramadan. Just honestly, there's an anger
Mm.
against the oppressors and what's going on. And so ilallahi mushtaka, we say that to Allah we complain. And so this is a month where we are going to complain to our Lord, and we are going to open our hearts and shed tears for the injustices going on. And I think that there's almost this cathartic relief knowing that, okay, now you're in a space and in a mindset where it's okay, very socially acceptable to cry during Ramadan and Taraweeh,
Mm.
very socially acceptable to cry in your qiyam, and really hyper focus those tears on what's going on.
Subhanallah. No,
Hmm.
you're absolutely right. Even in everyday life, whether we're at home, we're at work, we're by ourselves, I think this Ramadan is different, and especially with what's going on in Gaza, in Sudan, elsewhere, we see like you said, we've never seen a genocide unfold live, and that definitely has this effect, and I think that plays into people's uh, everyday emotions and plays into our family lives, our work life, and subhanallah, we're seeing that, and more importantly, we are feeling, I would say, a sense of guilt, right? We're feeling a
Yeah.
sense of like helplessness, like how can we help them? Why do we have it so easy? Do you
Right, right,
feel
right.
others are feeling the same way?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so I've seen about like four different emotions, mainly. You know, People who talk about this when they come to my practice, or just in general, just talking to people. And guilt is usually at the top of it, right? So there's guilt, there's
Mm,
sadness, there's anger, and hopelessness. So guilt, I feel like for a lot of us is this dominant emotion right now. And there's a healthy way to deal with guilt, and there's an unhealthy way to deal with guilt. And I just to help people kind of navigate through this, because honestly this is a day-to-day struggle for me right now, because subhanallah, and Abdullah, I'm sure you know this, my brother-in-law, and I'm sure a dear friend of yours, I'm actually, after this, I'm leaving to the airport to see him off, because he's going on a mission trip to Gaza right now, with another medical team. May
subhanallah.
Allah protect them. May Allah protect
Ameen.
all of the healthcare workers and all of those serving to help the mustadifin, to help those who are oppressed and going through so much difficulty. And subhanallah, like there's a sense of, obviously, pride for
Mm,
so many people from our community, believe it or not, are going and helping, and
right.
putting their lives at stake, to help their brothers and sisters. But then there's this, okay, am I doing enough? And one of the dominant feelings of guilt is what's known as survivor guilt, right? And it's this, you know, their children are no less than our children, and we're parents and we know this, right?
Right.
But those are our children too. And, those are our children who are being bombed. Those are our children under the rubble,
Subhanallah.
you know? And so a certain sense of guilt, a certain feeling of guilt is absolutely normal. It's absolutely acceptable, and it's a sign that your heart is alive, because
Mm,
if the Muslim Ummah is one body, right now, Gaza is the heart, you know?
yeah.
And so, if we utilize that feeling of guilt into healthy, actionable items. So, for example, this Ramadan, Sheikh Umar Sulaiman was encouraging this, and I love that he did that. Let's make our iftar a little bit more simplistic. Let's not be
Yeah.
extravagant, because it's just weird when we are eating
Mm,
lavishly and watching people starving. You know,
subhanallah.
they're saying Allahu Akbar because they got flour.
Mm,
So it's okay for us to step it back a little bit, like cut down on the samosas and all of that. Have a simple iftar, right? And this is an idea. Allah bless my wife; she's full of good ideas. We've tried to implement
mm,
a very simplistic. She calls it a Sahabi-esque iftar, where people come very quick, 15 minutes, simple iftar, and you're at the masjid on time. Just to kind of revive that sunnah of simplicity. So that's a healthy way to deal with the guilt. Um, with survivor guilt, there is the unhealthy aspect of it, and there was a 2018 study that spoke about this. It was a qualitative study which spoke about survivors who had survivors of war who had like this PTSD, and they were just constantly in battle in their minds with, I don't deserve the good,
mm,
feeling you don't deserve all of the khair that you have. Sometimes even feeling like, okay, maybe I'm a bad person, I'm not capable of doing any good. And that's the negative aspect of guilt, right?
Yeah.
That's the aspect where you have to take a step back and say, you know what, like, yes, I feel bad. Yes, I feel horrible for what's going on, but khair, Allah chose this for me as well. So let me, rather than say I don't deserve it, because I don't get to decide that. Allah decides what I deserve and what I don't deserve, what I have and what I don't have. That's already written. You know what I'm saying? So rather than use that kind of rhetoric, which is going to be, it leads to like self-deprecation. It's not, at
Mm.
least initially, essentially like inactivity. Being able to just say, look, yes, I feel guilty. I wish I could do more. My heart bleeds for what's going on, and now let me focus that sadness on making dua. Focus that sadness on having a simplistic iftar. Focus that sadness on, and that guilt, excuse me, on, not being as wasteful, donating more, doing what I can do, right? So this is, you take a very intense feeling and you kind of laser focus it to something good. So that's guilt
Awesome.
is one of the major feelings, yeah. And then
You
there's
know,
like sadness.
subhanallah,
Yeah, yeah,
you're absolutely right. Like we all have a sense of guilt, but then I would say some people, and I've seen this, and probably you've seen this as well, they have that such a strong feeling of guilt of just like, okay, I'm alive.
yeah,
They're dead. I have food. They don't. I how can I put up lights this Ramadan, like the example you gave, or have a festive iftar? Um, what is the balance? Is there a balance, or is it different for everybody? Like, for example, let's say you have two brothers. One wants to kind of enjoy their life a little bit in the
yeah,
sense like they want to make it festive for, let's say, for their kids, not even for themselves. But then
right.
you have another brother or sister that's saying, no, like totally not going to do anything this Ramadan. Is there a balance? Is there not a balance? Or is it different for people because their emotions and their feelings are different?
No, very well said, right? So, I mean, if you're somebody who's prone to depression, or maybe is diagnosed with depression, for example, right? You're gonna have to take things a little bit differently, right?
Mm,
For that, you might need more of that festive feeling of Ramadan. You might need to focus more on that, right? I think the
right.
balance is like, we fall very often into black and white thinking. Either I
Mm,
celebrate completely or I don't celebrate at all. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that we alter a few things about our Ramadan to make sure that our eyes and hearts are always focused on Gaza, while recognizing that it's Ramadan, right? So when a beautiful idea that my wife had was just to put little like candles with maybe a small paragraph of one of the children in Gaza, right? So this is a decoration, but it's also keeping in mind. And what does that do? That makes us more grateful, right? That
mm,
allows us to uh, constantly remember them, but then do something. I see that picture. I read a little paragraph about about a child, realize their humanness, and I make dua for them, just as I make dua for my children. You know, so I think that's the balance. But you're right. It is a very individual thing. You have to gauge yourself, right? When we talk about sadness, right? So, sadness, it means that your heart is alive, but when you get to a point where you're not able to engage in beneficial activities, right? So if you are finding yourself at a point where, look, I don't feel like doing the small chit chat. I don't really
mm,
care if Bitcoin is going up or not. I don't really care
yeah,
about you know uh, like this UFC fight, or like this like NBA game, or this or that, or whatever, right? Like I don't care
yeah,
about the latest gossip. Fine, this is maybe not the time for that, right? But if you become so sad that I don't feel like going to the masjid, I don't have the energy to make dua, I don't feel like
mm,
showing kindness and goodness to my family, okay, that's a problem, because now your sadness and your pain is not benefiting them, nor is it benefiting yourself. And so that's where you kind of take a step back and you say, okay, no, like, how do i how do I basically use the sadness for good, right? A sadness that leads me to focus on what's important and right now, and makes me more active, rather than a sadness that makes me lethargic, that makes me recluse, that makes me inactive. And so that's I think that's a
you
yeah.
mentioned a really good point. Okay, so like you're so sad that you're not able to go to the masjid, or you don't feel like it. You don't feel like doing anything in the day.
Hmm.
But isn't that also like a natural emotion? Like, is it? Is it that you'll feel that some days and other days you feel active, or are you talking about somebody who feels constantly like that? And how do you judge? Like, how do you? Because when I'm sitting in my chair, let's say, right,
Mm.
and I don't see what others see. So
Yeah.
how do you allow others' point of view to kind of influence you if you don't see what place you're in?
Well, like, meaning, if you're not self-aware,
Yeah, I mean, I think most of us, I would just say, like, we might think, hey, I'm okay, everything is good, right? But
yeah.
like inside, you're kind of dying, or you're
Right,
kind of,
right, right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. What a great point. Like,
you know,
this is also a time for community, right? One of the things that I feel really blessed to be part of Valley Ranch, right, is they don't let us forget. How many times have we, prayed qunut in our Fajr prayers or in our Isha prayers for Gaza? How many lectures, whether it's even with Sheikh Yasser and I, whether it's something about family, so we tie it into the families of Gaza. Whether it's children, we tie it to the children of Gaza. Like, everything is tied in. But the thing is that we're talking about it as a community. We're not staying quiet, and we're not staying to ourselves, right? Isolation is one of the worst things we can do for ourselves right now. It is absolutely one of the worst things we can do. Ramadan is a month of collective ibadah. Ramadan is a month of community. And I mean, that has that sense of community and that sense of talking and sharing and just being able to be like, bro, like, I'm just frustrated right now. Like, I mean, I'll be vulnerable, man. I'm scared for my brother-in-law. I'm scared for what
um,
could happen to him. I love him for the sake of Allah. And I'm sad when I see my children and I see the pictures of other children, knowing that those are also our children, right? But if you and I don't talk about it and we just keep it inside, it's going to fester and it's going to lead to those feelings that are negative and lead to like inactivity and being recluse. So we have to learn to be vulnerable. We have to learn to speak about these things beyond just what's going on in the news, how we're feeling about it, how we're processing, how we're taking it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
yeah.
So so if there was like a step-by-step guide, right? Give
Perfect. Yeah.
like 3 steps or A to Z of if somebody is feeling that way and they don't see a sense of community, how do they go find somebody that they can be comfortable with? How do they tell them without feeling like they're telling them too much? Or what are the steps? If somebody's feeling that, how do they get out of
Sure,
it?
sure, sure. So let's talk about in general. Actually, I think that's what I wanted to start my talk off with, but that's okay. Like, there is something known as emotional coaching. Okay, emotional coaching is. I'm sure you've heard of different parenting styles, right? There's, like, authoritarian, authoritative, and all of this, right? I'm sure you've attended some of our workshops where we talked about the different parenting styles. There are also different styles of teaching emotions to our children, right? And the best approach is something known as emotional coaching. But it's not only for our children, it's for ourselves, right? So emotional coaching has a few components to it. And the first component is being able to recognize and acknowledge that emotion and say, this is a human emotion, right? It's normal. It's not a weakness of faith. There's a beautiful verse in the Quran that talks about at the times of difficulty, like even the prophets and those who are with them, حتى يقول الرسول والذين آمنوا معه متى نصر الله. That, like,
Mm,
even they will get to a point that, like, when are things going to get better? When
right.
is there ease, right? And Allah's response, ألا إن نصر الله قريب. That verily,
Um,
the victory of Allah is
need.
close, right? But acknowledging and saying, you know what, my sadness makes me human. My sadness means that my heart is alive. My frustration, the fact that I don't feel as wonderful and happy this Ramadan, means that my heart is in the right place. So acknowledging that, right? Putting a label on it. That's the second thing, right? So for those of you who are interested, like, just do a simple Google search of something known as an emotional wheel. It's a great tool for you to use for yourself and for your kids. It just basically expands your emotional vocabulary, right? And the more you expand your emotional vocabulary, the more tangible, the more easy it is, malleable it is to be able to understand and then manage your emotions. So it's not just sad, but it could be frustrated, guilty. It could be, and you go more and more into detail. So an emotional wheel kind of helps you put more of a name to those feelings. And then once you do that, so I'm not fighting the fact that I'm sad. I'm not questioning, oh, why am I sad? Why am I feeling this way? No, alhamdulillah, Allah created me this way, right? This means that my heart is alive. And this is what I'm feeling right now. This is I've sat down, I've identified, I've processed it, I've talked about it with people. Now I've learned to put on the proverbial band-aid, right? The example that I give is like if a child falls off a bike, right? You don't tell them, oh, boys don't cry, what's wrong with you? How's the bike? You say, you know what, beta, it's okay to cry, but now let's go to the first aid kit and let's teach you how to put a band-aid on, right? So what's our band-aid? Is it salah? Is it dua? Is it talking to each other, right? So now we learned what's known in psychology as an internal locus of control, that now I can figure out certain things that I can do to alleviate that sadness, to alleviate that pain, right? So um, identify the emotion, label the emotion, and then learn how to self-soothe. So that's kind of the formula, whether it's guilt, whether it's
Yeah.
anger, whether it's sadness, right?
Identify it, label it, learn how to center yourself.
Yeah, basically, to
Self-
set yourself to do something about that. Like, I'm taking that guilt, for example, and I'm changing the way I do iftar. I'm
Mm,
more generous. I'm more, I'm taking that sadness, and you know, I'm recognizing the reality that the family members in Gaza who lost their spouses
subhanallah.
wished that they could have them back. So how am I going to treat my spouse moving forward?
Wow.
My children, how am I going to treat them? Like, they wish, subhanallah, they would give anything just to argue with their children again, you know? So that is an actionable change that you can do, and it's a healthy way to deal with the emotion. I'm going to treat my family better. I'm going to be more appreciative. I'm going to be more generous. I'm going to focus more on what's important in life, you know?
Yeah.
So it's yeah, learning to kind of navigate those emotions in that manner.
Brother Usman, we're like 25% done with Ramadan, right?
Yeah.
We've got the other 75% that we can make do with. What if somebody wants to take full advantage of their emotions? Maybe they're sad, maybe they're upset, they're angry, or they're feeling guilty, or now they're feeling like, look, I didn't even take full advantage of Ramadan because I was so down. Like, what can they do now for the next 75% that we have left?
No, absolutely. So this is more of a Sheikh Yasser advice. I want to give credit to people who have the awesome advice, right? So uh, can you pin the equation in the comments? Yes, inshallah I will. So Ramadan is, gosh, I forgot the word that he used, but this is not just a month that class. It's like one and done, right? So it's not that, oh, it's 75% done, I've lost my chance. No, it's what habit do I want to inculcate within myself and within my family that is going to continue beyond Ramadan, right? So if we're talking about simplicity in eating, or if we're talking about being more generous or less wasteful, uh, then I'm going to make a commitment today. Maybe I wasn't doing that the first week of Ramadan. Maybe I went overboard with the samosa and stuff, right? Now I'm going to be more conscious about it, but not just in Ramadan. It's going to translate over to, inshallah, the rest of the year. If I'm generous now, it's going to translate over. If I'm more mindful and more, aware of the larger picture, that when you have people who are starving to death, when you have people who are dying, you know, don't argue with your spouse about the grocery bill. Learn to let that stuff go, right? It really puts life in perspective. Carry that on after Ramadan as well. So it's not about, even if it's 50% done, even if it's 75% done, pick one or two habits, pick one or two mindset changes that you have, that will carry on, inshallah, beyond Ramadan and hopefully for the rest of your life.
Uh, I mean. All right, so let me ask you like a little bit of a different question, right?
Super.
So we have people of all ages probably on here right now. We've I think kind of focused more on the adult side,
Yeah.
probably even those that are married and have kids side,
Yeah.
which is great because I needed that. So I personally benefited. Thank you very much. And the Band-Aid comment was really helpful. The three steps, identify, label, and self-soothe was really, really helpful to me. I'm just, kind of reflecting. But then for younger people,
Yeah.
right? Those that, I would say like when I was a little bit younger, I always wanted justice, right? You
Yeah.
would go speak about it more.
Right.
You would feel it more. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't know if it's just me, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I feel, has put more zeal in a certain age group, right? Where
Yeah.
they go out and they're active, they do things, they feel more things.
Yeah.
What is your advice for those people? Like perhaps their challenge is not the family. Like perhaps their
Mm.
challenge is like, hey, I want to correct this wrong, and
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
feeling like they can't do it right now.
Right, right. Yeah. No, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially the young people, your voice matters, subhanAllah. I was at a city hall hearing, voting on like ceasefire. I can't believe we're actually even talking about that. It should be a no-brainer. But anyway, it was all the young people. It was our young, brothers and sisters who were on the mic and speaking so, mashallah, like proficiently, and it made you so proud as an ummah, right? So keep doing what you're doing, right? That anger, going to protests, speaking to your representatives, right? Boycotting, donating, all of that. That's a healthy way of displaying your anger, right? Uh, an unhealthy way, especially young people, please don't get into arguments with useless people online and trolls and so on. I don't know, half of them are probably bots. Don't waste your energy with that, right? This is not like, the difference between unhealthy anger, and I do a lot of anger management in my practice as well, is that, unhealthy anger is where we have a certain insecurity about ourselves, right? I feel I'm less accomplished, or I feel I don't look good, or I feel I'm not educated, or I feel that I'm disorganized. And so when anybody alludes to that in some way, I get very defensive, right? No, it's not about our ego right now. Our anger is because the rights of Allah have been violated. Our anger is because what Allah has said is sanctified has been has been disrespected, right? Each human life is worth more than the Kaaba, right? So that's where our frustration is. And again, this is a great example, especially for our youngsters. Please keep doing what you're doing. Allah, you guys are leading the way and putting us to shame, right? Honestly, it's the young people who are setting up these protests. It's the young people who are at these rallies and who are speaking out in front of their representatives and polling and all of this. It's the youngsters, mashallah. So that's a great example of utilizing that anger in a controlled way. I don't lose my adab. I don't lose my principles as a Muslim, but my sense of justice shines at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
subhanallah. I
Yeah.
think you said it really, really well. Like, taking it, the energy that somebody may have, whether young or old,
Right.
channeling it into something positive for yourself, for the ummah.
Right.
So, like we talked about young people, like what about kids,
What about kids? Excellent
particularly
question.
kids
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
might be so affected. Like, parents are trying to explain it to kids. Kids are trying to understand what's going on in the world, and also in Ramadan. Like, if kids see, like, for example, let's say your kid asks you, why are we not decorating this Ramadan? How are you going to explain that? And how are kids processing this? What have you seen in the field so far?
No. Excellent question. Yeah. So we actually gave a specific workshop on this not too long ago. So for kids, it depends on the age group, right? So for very young kids, don't let them on social media. In general, I know we want to be informed. Looking at gory images, it really doesn't do much benefit, right?
Gotcha.
So you can be informed and you can talk to your kids. For younger kids, like you want to like just ask them like what they know first, right? Gauge like what they know, because you don't want to start preaching to them without knowing what they know first, right? So what have
Where
you
they're
heard
at.
about Gaza? What have you
Yeah.
heard about Palestine? What's been going on, right? Like my son, like he was like, yeah, Baba, it's the Irish that were against them. I'm like, no, sweetie, it's not the Irish. He was trying to confuse Israeli and the Irish, and so I
Mm.
explained to him what Zionism is and so on. And so find out what they know first, right? And talk to them at their level, right? So for elementary school kids, like really honestly, they should not be on social media. They shouldn't be looking at this stuff.
Mm.
It serves no benefit. As they get older, and they start developing this, higher sense of justice as teenagers, and that's when you start to have dialogues, and that's when you start to give them the platform to also speak their feelings and emotions. And it's going to be a continuous conversation, right? It's not just a one and done, like because the situation is changing on a daily basis. Our emotions are changing on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
So keep those lines of dialogue open.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
So, with kids, is it particular, like, do their emotions fluctuate more than adults? And if they do, like, how do you help them with that?
Right. No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, some adults' emotions fluctuate more than kids, right? So everybody has their own unique temperament, subhanallah.
Yeah.
But we lead by example, right? If our kids have a venue to be able to say, "This is what I'm feeling," without feeling judged, right?
Mm.
They have the ability to be able to say, "I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm hurt, I'm frustrated, I don't know what to do," or "I'm not even feeling anything. I feel, I don't know, apathetic," right? Uh, then we can kind of guide them as far as like that same method of sweetie, it's okay to feel sad, it's okay to feel hurt, and in fact, that means that your heart is in the right place. Right now, what are some things? Let's brainstorm. What are some things that we can do? You heard about some children who are going through difficulty. What's something that we can do? My subhanallah, like one of the things that my brother-in-law told us is that the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, is out of diapers. They're out of
Subhanallah.
diapers, you know. And so we tried to send some. I hope it allowed to bring benefits. Send some of the reusable diapers over, hoping that it'll bring some benefit. I mean, imagine as a parent not having
Mm,
diapers. Uh, so you can kind of at a very low level tell your kids this, and so they're like, oh, okay, let's go maybe donate to an organization that is providing that, or let's go and maybe if it's something that we directly can't help immediately right now. The children of Gaza, there are poor children close by within our vicinity. Let's
yeah.
go. Let's go volunteer. Let's go work there. And so give them those ideas. And so now you're giving them an avenue to navigate through those very difficult emotions, right? So you're giving that again. That proverbial band-aid is donations. It's doing something about it in a healthy way. So if that makes sense.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you any last comments and questions in relation to Ramadan, in relation to where we're at emotionally, in relation to how we can take advantage of that and turn that into a positive force for us for the rest of Ramadan. How do we navigate our emotions and make Ramadan even
Right.
more productive than it may have been?
No, no,
And
no.
we'll conclude with
Absolutely. No, no. Barakallahu feek. Like I said, we take these emotions, especially these four of like anger, of sadness, of hopelessness, and um, of guilt, and we realize these are what make us human. And understanding that is the difference between a very powerful laser focused Ramadan where we start to feel lighter hearts versus like shutting down and becoming inactive or apathetic. So with every emotion, I am finding one, two, three, four things that I can do about it, right? In general, and I used this term earlier, right? There's something known as an internal locus of control. An internal locus of control is the single most therapeutic curative factor to depression, anxiety, and a host of other negative things, right? Internal locus of control is that no matter how I feel, as long as I acknowledge it's okay to feel that way, I am able to find something, no matter how small, I'm able to find something that I can do about it, right? Whether it's gratitude in my heart, whether it's sujood, whether it's dua, whether it's even like encourage your kids, like, hey, you got like $5 for Eid last year, let's donate it. You're teaching them
that.
there's something I can do about it.
Yeah, awesome. I think the power is with it. That's what I've heard
Yeah,
throughout from the very beginning of our conversation.
yeah,
It's not about outside. It's not about what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in
yeah.
Sudan. It's about to alleviate them from
Mhm.
all of their sufferings immediately
Amen,
and bring
amen,
them
amen.
victory,
Yeah,
bring them peace. This
yeah.
Ramadan, allow them to celebrate Eid like never before. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bring our ummah together as He's already done,
Amen.
and show us the right way, guide us in these last, not last, but in the remainder of Ramadan. But what I've
Absolutely.
heard is it's not about Gaza. It's not about the other people. It's really about within how you
A hundred,
control yourself.
100%. Like one of the emotions that I listed, I I feel like hopelessness can be an emotion. It's also a state of mind, right? And at its base, right? And you know this better than me, mashallah. Like hopelessness at its base, it's not something proper for the Muslim, right? Hopelessness is
Mm,
something that directly Allah tells us not to have in the Quran, right? But we do feel sad, we do feel frustrated. When we start to feel overall this hopelessness, that's when we have to take a step back and say, okay, maybe the issue is like you said within me, right? Am I in general, and am I somebody who likes to like, not likes to, but tends to focus more on the negative in life in general,
mm,
even before this? Am I somebody who looks at life in a black and white manner? Where it's either everything is good or everything is horrible, right? Am I someone who catastrophizes and just looks at everything that can possibly go wrong, and maybe I feel that everything that goes wrong happens with me, right? So if there's a
mm.
traffic jam, it happens when I drive, right? If there's a
Yeah,
thunderstorm, it's when I'm out,
yeah,
so
yeah.
um, that is a reason for us to take a step back and say, okay, maybe I need to start changing my cognition, right? Because um, a healthy believer is one who allows himself or herself to feel sad, but at the same time never loses that hope that things are going to get better and are better, right? Like throughout all of this, we also see the resilience of the people of Gaza, right? I've spoke a few times now about this idea known as vicarious resilience, the ability to look at a people who are saying, Alhamdulillah, hasbuna wa ni'mal wakil, la
Mm.
hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and just praising Allah after burying their children. There is nothing more difficult in therapy, at least in my opinion, than bereavement therapy when a parent loses a child, especially a young child. And these people are at the pinnacle of Iman. What do we learn from them? If they can overcome those like unfathomable difficulties, then I can overcome my worry about my job, or I can overcome my worry about my kids, or for the younger generation, like my worries about school or my worries about friends and so on. If they can overcome their challenges, certainly I can overcome mine.
Oh wow,
Mhm.
that's really really powerful. So, mashallah, we actually have a kids segment coming up with
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ilyas
Yes,
here
yes,
in just a second. We went a little bit over time, but I really needed this, so I'll ask a question that I need as well. I conclude with that because we don't see a lot
I
of
don't, I don't
questions.
want to take away from Ilyas and Duck, man. I love the book. I was just reading it to my daughter, so.
Oh, mashallah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll end with this one last one. Okay, what does it mean that Allah is as you think of Him?
Very good, right? Right, like and bihi, right? Like that, that I am as my slave thinks of me, so let my slave think good of me. And as the Prophet ﷺ, was one of his last words before passing, is, let not one of you leave this world except that he has a good thought of his Lord, right?
Wow,
This is cognitive behavioral therapy at its core from a Muslim lens, right? We know that Allah's judgment is perfect and his wisdom is perfect, and the people of Gaza know that. And that's why they're able to say that, because they know that paradise is better for them than this world.
subhanallah, subhanallah, subhanallah.
You know, so it's understanding that we vent to Allah. We never vent at Allah,
Wow,
and we that's I think that's the healthy way of looking at it. Is that I know that so many times in the Quran, Allah has mentioned that when things seem the darkest, right? كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله. That how many times has like a small group defeated a large group from by the permission of Allah, right? So this is our belief as Muslims, that we know that Allah has not and will not abandon us, and Allah is with us always, and we hold on to that faith and know this is part of His perfect plan, even though we navigate through it with sadness, with frustration. This is part of life.
subhanallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to see His wisdom, allow us to
Mm.
put our full trust in Him, allow us to benefit each other, and be able to take control of our
Mm.
emotions and turn that to something positive.
Love
With
it.
that, Brother Usman, thank you for being with us. Jazakumullah khairan. Have a good
Mm.
iftar here in a few minutes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept
Inshallah.
from you.
Please, 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 please make dua for my brother-in-law. Please make dua for all the medical staff, everyone who is going. Like I said, I'm seeing him off in literally just like a few minutes. So
Wow.
please just make dua for them all.
I'm just so
That
proud
they
of him.
bring the
He's
most,
so brave. And the medics that are going out there,
putting their
subhanAllah,
life
they're
on the
so
line,
brave.
knowing that, yeah, subhanallah.
And those that are doing
May Allah
anything,
guide their hands with the
yeah,
surgeons. May Allah guide their hands. May
I
Allah,
mean,
allow them to bring the most benefit and alleviate the suffering of our brothers and sisters. Yeah.
Ameen. Ameen. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much. Take care. If you're just joining us, we're at RamadanPrep.com. And next up is our episode with Ilyas and Duck. So we got two episodes today. And for those that are just joining us, with the Ilyas and Duck episodes, they have a theme or a topic. So today's theme is resourcefulness. And I'll explain what that means in just a second. And environment. And let me tell you what that means in just a second. So, like, for example, water is a resource, right? We want to protect water. And even when we're making wudu, we don't want to make the wudu with so much water that we are losing that water, right? So, that's literally down to both resources and environment together. With that, go to RamadanPrep.com to download the Ilyas and Duck or the kids segment material. You're going to need that. And that's the challenges, the challenge cards. So I will put it here in the chat, RamadanPrep.com. And with that, enjoy the show. We've got our challenges here up as well. Let me read that before we switch over. So it's a little hard for me, but let me try. Show kindness to a family member by helping them in chores. So that could be something that you do. That's level one of the challenge for adults, and it could be for kids as well. Level two is showing kindness to a family member by helping them in a chore or spending quality time with them, 10 minutes, right? Uh, Maybe doing that virtually or in person 2 to 3 times a week. Last level, if you want to go like the mega challenge level, is show kindness to a family member by helping them with a chore of your choice, spending 10 quality minutes, and upping that to perhaps 4 times a week. You get the idea. Help others, show them, give them time. I think the only thing people want, family members want, is time from each other. So with that, Jazakumullah khairan. Again, Brother Usman, that was amazing. May Allah accept from you. Ilyas and Duck, you're on. Enjoy, guys. Assalamu alaikum.
Hey everybody, it's Ramadan.
Let's round up.
It's Ramadan Roundup. It's Ramadan Roundup. It's Ramadan Roundup. Ramadan Roundup with Ilyas and Duck. Let's go!
Isn't the outdoors so beautiful? Yes, I've been outdoors for hours, Ranger Duck. There is nothing out here for miles, except some trees and mountains. I was lost around that mountain 3 times. I'm so sorry to hear that, Duck. But where's your friend Elias? He's a great navigator. Aww. Yes, he is a good navigator. Oh, I miss him. He had to visit Ustad Duck, so I'm here all alone. I'm sure that missing him is making you appreciative of the times when you are with him, isn't it? When it is. When I see him again, I'm gonna give him a big hug and hold on to him for a long time. Then, I'm going to make a schedule of everything we are going to do so we don't waste any time together. Duck, you will learn quickly about being resourceful. I have? Yes. When you begin to appreciate something, you become more resourceful with the thing that you have. In this case, you are planning on being more resourceful with your time when you see your friend Elias again. You can be resourceful with time? Yes, and that's what you're planning on doing. You want to make the most of your time with Elias so you don't waste any of it. Because wasting something, even time, is doing the opposite of being resourceful. Actually, the reason Ustad Duck asked you to come out here today is to learn about resourcefulness. And he wanted you to learn about that by experiencing scarcity. What is scarcity? Scarcity is when you don't have enough of something you need or want, or when you have very little of it. You mean like in Ramadan, when there's a scarcity of donuts in my belly because I'm fasting? Yes! Ramadan is a great example of experiencing scarcity. That's all part of Allah's plan, because by restricting us from food and water, Allah is teaching us to be appreciative of the things we cannot have but need. When we cannot have something, we think about and appreciate that thing much more. And when things are scarce, your mind tends to appreciate them a lot more when you do have them. Oh, believe me, fasting has made me a lot more appreciative of donuts. Right, and when you're more appreciative of donuts, you'll be more resourceful with them when you do have them. You can say that again. Donuts. Let me ask you a question. Say you break your fast and only have 10 donuts available to eat for the week. Would you eat them all in one sitting? That's what I would want to do. But then there won't be any left for the rest of the week, and I will miss them. Right. If you eat them all in one sitting, then you are not being resourceful with your donuts. Now, instead of donuts, let's imagine something very important for our bodies. Water. Imagine you only had 1 bottle of water to drink for a whole week, and you were here in the great outdoors all by yourself. Would you drink all the water on the first day, or would you take small sips every day so that the water will last you the entire week? Take small sips every day so it'll last me the entire week. That's right. Water is so important for us to live that if you are not resourceful with it, In that example, you will run out of it. That would not be a good situation to be in. No, it wouldn't. And that's because you would have been wasteful with the water, not resourceful. But that isn't the situation right now. I have plenty of water with me and at home. It's important to always be resourceful, Duck, whether you have little of something or a lot of it. For example, when you make wudu for salat, would you keep the tap open the entire time just because you have access to modern day plumbing and there's a lot of water available? Or would you just use the right amount of water for each step and close the tap in between? I would use just enough water so I'm not wasting any water.
Correct! That's an example of being resourceful 5 times a day.
Ah, I think I understand. You're saying that when you have very little of something, you should use it resourcefully. And you're also saying that when you have a lot of something, you should still be resourceful with it so you're not being wasteful.
Exactly. And being resourceful is also a way of thinking. For example, if for some reason you don't have access to water to do wudu, then you are allowed to be resourceful and do what's called a tayammum. That's making wudu without water.
Oh, that's a good idea when you don't have the water available.
Yes, as Muslims, Allah encourages us to be resourceful, not only so that we're not wasteful, but also so that we may improve. In fact, there are all many times in our lives that Allah might help us by being resourceful, by restricting things from us. Do you know why?
Because when we are restricted from things, we learn to figure out another way.
Yes, exactly.
I learned that from the wudu example.
You're a smart little scout. Allah is Al-Qabid, the restricting one. Because Allah knows that we improve when He restricts us. Because He never restricts to the point that we have no way to figure things out. Because Allah withholds, but never so much that we cannot be resourceful and figure out a way. And when we are restricted and we figure out another way, we improve ourselves.
Just like our goodness challenges.
Yes, a lot like our goodness challenges. Now, I see many of your friends here watching, so let's play a little game of resourcefulness to make sure we understand what it means to be resourceful when we are restricted. Ready? Okay. Say you wanted to build fire in this campsite to use it for staying warm and cooking, but you didn't have any matchsticks or a lighter to light the wood. What could you do instead to build a fire? One answer is you can find 2 pieces of dry wood and rub them together until they're hot enough to start burning and start a fire.
Oh, that's clever.
Yes, it's being resourceful and finding a way. Okay, let's do one more. What would you do if you're in the forest and need to write down something and don't have anything to write with? There are many answers for this one, but one is to find a piece of coal and use that. It works just like a pencil. You see, Allah withholds, but never so much that we cannot be resourceful and figure out our way. And in doing so, you improve yourselves and learn new ways of doing things.
Wow, I learned a lot about being resourceful today. Now, I should use some of that learning and find my way home. It's starting to get dark.
But how will you find your way home? You don't have a map.
I will be resourceful and use the stars to find my way home.
Hey everybody, it's Ramadan.
Let's round up.
It's Ramadan Roundup. It's Ramadan Roundup. It's Ramadan Roundup. Ramadan Roundup with Ilyas and Duck. Let's go!
Assalamu alaikum. I'm so glad you're visiting me all the way up here at the North Pole. I'm Arctic Duck, and I'm here on top of the world. I actually don't live up here. No one really does. It's way too cold and inhabitable. In fact, my mouth is frozen right now. I can barely speak. Plus, the ice keeps shifting, so it's impossible to have a permanent igloo. Ha 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 ha. Imagine waking up one day and realizing you're not where you went to sleep. Oh my. But just because people don't live up here doesn't mean that the Arctic isn't an important place on Earth. On the contrary, the Arctic region is extremely important to the health of the entire world, and we must do what we can to protect it. Actually, your friends, Elias and Duck, they couldn't make it all the way up here, so they asked me to talk to y'all about goodness learning of the day. It's about protecting the environment. Did y'all know that Allah makes it our duty as Muslims to take care of our environment? Allah has made everything and has entrusted His creation to human beings, you and me, to look after it all. In fact, did y'all know that Allah created plants and animals before He created humans? Yes, Allah's beauty was here first, and we must respect our role as humans within His creations and protect the rights of all that He has created. Besides, a good and clean environment means a healthy earth, and a healthy earth means a healthy home for us humans and all other types of animal and plant life. I am an environmental scientist. That's my job. So I come here regularly to do a sort of checkup on the area. No, not with a thermometer, ha 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 ha, but through science experiments. I suppose you can think of me as an earth doctor. Ha ha ha. I've been doing checkups on the Arctic for a very long time. And kids, let me tell you, this place isn't doing too well lately. Its temperature is rising. The temperature here has increased by nearly 1 degree Celsius in the last 100 years. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but believe me, it's enough to cause a lot of this beautiful ice to start melting. In fact, 40% of sea ice that was around in the 1970s, about the time when your parents were just babies, is now gone. See? Poof! Melted. That's almost half of all the ice here in the Arctic. Why is this happening? Because the world is warming up. How is that happening? It's a little complicated, but let me try to explain. It starts with us. You see, we humans, you, me, your parents, everyone, we live our daily lives using energy when we are driving our cars, riding buses, flying planes, using electricity for times when we are watching TV or have the lights on in our rooms. Even the factories that make some of our favorite toys have to use energy to make those toys. And how do we get all this energy? Most of it comes from burning things like oil, gas, and coal. And when we burn oil, gas, and coal, it creates smoke that is harmful to the Earth's atmosphere, which is causing the Earth to get warmer than it should be. And what happens to ice when it is in a warm place? That's right. It starts to melt. And so the ice here is melting. There is less and less of it every year. This is making our planet even more sick. Why? Because subhanallah, Allah created this beautiful ice to be like a big refrigerator for our planet. It helps keep things cool because the white surface of the ice reflects the sunlight off our planet back into space so it doesn't get too hot. This keeps the planet at the right temperature. But sadly, when there is less ice, then there is less sunlight bouncing off the earth, which then means that more of the sun's hot rays are being absorbed by the earth, which is making the earth even warmer. Ugh. And that's a bad thing for everyone in the world. even where you are right now. Because when the earth is warmer than it should be, it starts to change the weather patterns where you live, which leads to other things like flooding and even affecting the habitat of many animals. Here in the Arctic, for example, animals such as polar bears, walrus, seals, penguins, Arctic foxes, snowy owls, reindeer, and many other of Allah's creations are losing their homes and have nowhere to go. Even polar bears are starting to spend more time on land because there is less ice for them to take a rest after they go fishing for food. When sudden, major changes affect the natural habitat of animals, some species cannot adapt or move and die out, and that is sad. Maybe that is what is happening to the fish, because I used to catch a whole line of fish every day without a problem. Now look, slim pickings. There are fewer fish around. But there is hope because Allah has provided us with guidance on how to live in harmony with all His creations. So here are a few simple things that you can do to help protect the environment starting today. Let's start with the biggest contributor to pollution in the atmosphere: single-use plastics. Yes, single-use plastics. The plastic you use just once, like plastic bags at the grocery store or plastic water bottles. These are one of the biggest causes of pollution in our rivers, seas, and oceans. Because we are producing and using so much of these items, the trash at landfills are constantly burned, and these keep sending smoke and pollutants into the atmosphere. So, don't use single-use plastics like plastic bags when you go shopping. Use reusable bags instead. Also, don't use plastic bottles to drink water throughout the day. Buy glass or stainless steel water bottles and carry those around with you. For any other plastic items that you can't avoid using, be sure to toss them in the recycling bin because some waste products can be broken down and turned back into new products. This reduces the amount of waste going into landfill sites or being burned. Glass, paper, metal, and some plastics are common materials that can be recycled. Next, turn off the lights when not in use because leaving the lights on when you're not in the room is a big waste of energy, and Allah does not love the wasters. Turn off your computer when not in use and unplug all the appliances that are not in use. Because as long as the appliances are plugged into the wall, they are slowly using energy. Bet you didn't know that, did ya? Next, eat and drink, but waste not by excess. Because if you're throwing food in the garbage that could have been eaten by someone else, then you are wasting, and wasting never has a good result. Also, plant a tree. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, if a Muslim plants a tree or sows a field and men and beasts and birds eat from it, all of it is charity on his part. There are so many other things you can do to help our planet, but these things I mentioned you can do easily every day. So you can start with that. Allah says in the Quran, the creation of the heavens and the earth are greater than the creation of mankind, but most of the people do not know. But kids, now you know, so now it's your job as a Muslim and as a fellow human being to help take care of Allah's creations and be one of the people Allah loves. So stand up. Come on, we're gonna take a pledge. I'll wait for you. Stand up. Okay, now raise your right hand and make a pledge. Say it with me. I'll do my part to protect the environment and keep our earth healthy. Good job. Okay, now I must pack up my things and head into the igloo for the night. Remember those polar bears I told you about earlier that are on land now because they don't have enough ice to walk on? Well, they are headed my way right now. And kids, you don't want to be that close to a polar bear. They are 7 feet tall with big claws. Oh boy! Bye for now. Don't forget your pledge. Send it to me or a star duck in a video. Please do your part to protect the environment. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. I really enjoyed those two shows. My kids were right here next to me watching the show. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from everybody who's been part of this program. I'm saying this because I believe this is the last day of our program. We've really enjoyed and benefited from Ilyas and Duck, but thank you, Brother Merkhwaja, for partnering with us. We've benefited from Sheikh Yasir Qadi, Brother Farhan Zuberi, Sister Hala Banani yesterday and today, Brother Usman Mughni, putting a lot of things into perspective. And most of all, I benefited from you guys, those that attended, those that are watching the recordings. Please keep me personally, Abdullah Sayyid, in your du'as, as well as ACC, acceducate.org. We give interest-free loans to Muslim students that are going to go and make change in society. So you definitely want to fund those that are doing community service, Islamic education, are doing really well in school and have a financial need. Those are the types of people that we are helping through ACC, the future leaders of our ummah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again accept the Ramadan from all of you. It was a pleasure being part of this program. And see you later. Barakallah feek.